Hello, Patriots. My name is Robert Patrick Lewis, and I'm one of the co-founding members of First Amendment Praetorian, a group of military, law enforcement, and intelligence community veterans who provide pro bono intelligence security services for patriotic and religious events. Some of you may have noticed I usually come to you from a dark and dingy office or room inside of a house. Today I'm outside, and I'm outside just because I happen to be in a very beautiful location. And I thought it would be very important to remind people just how important it is to be outside and just how beautiful nature is. Look at those trees behind me. In my life before First Amendment Praetorian, I've done a lot in the last decade, but in the Army, I was a Special Forces medic. And SF medics have to go through basically very close to medical school compressed into a year because we literally are the only healthcare provider for our team when we're deployed. And so one of the things I happen to know that maybe not everybody does is the absolute importance of sun. And if you don't know about that, it is very important. If you have people in your life that are afraid of the virus, which will remain unnamed so that I don't get blacklisted from social media, there's a couple important things. Number one, they found that the people do get harmed. A large number of them have vitamin D deficiencies. You can take vitamin D in a pill. It's very easy to get. Or you can walk outside. Human beings are built kind of like flowers, and where sunlight actually does a lot of processes in our body. One of those is creating vitamin D when your skin absorbs sunlight. There's another very, very important thing about sun. If you do have those people in your family that are afraid of the virus, which will remain unnamed, and that's that we've known for over a year that this virus, like many other viruses, can't survive more than 90 seconds in direct sunlight. And that kind of gets to another point, that one of the things that's really bothered me is when you drive around, especially here where I am, and you see playgrounds that are closed, right? Because that, for me as a dad, I think that we have done irreparable damage to the children of our society. And to have a playground closed, to mask kids, all these different things, but to have a playground closed, when we know kids are not harmed by the virus, which will remain unnamed, the whole asymptomatic spread was proven a hoax a long time ago, and that the virus, which shall remain unnamed, can't survive more than 90 seconds in full sunlight. I still haven't heard a single good answer as to why children's playgrounds are closed, and why schools all around the world have been open for a very long time. Yet nobody here wants to follow science and have them all completely opened and stop torturing kids with masks. But this is not meant to be a medical infomercial. I have other things I want to talk to you about. It's important to remember the small things, right? Getting outside, that's a very important thing. If you have kids, get them outside as much as possible, because it really is important now, but always. The sunlight not only gives us vitamin D, but also regulates a lot of our hormones. If you spend too much time indoor, think of us like a flower, right? A flower, if you leave it outside of sunlight, it's going to wilt away and die. People need sunlight to regulate their emotions. So if you start getting depressed and then you decide to go inside and not go out in the sun very much because you're depressed, your hormones are going to start to get way out of whack, and it makes you even more depressed, which means you don't want to go outside because you're depressed, and that'll make you even more depressed and on and on and on and on and on. So I'm not your health expert, although I'd play one on TV, although I was literally that in the Army. I just wanted to remind everyone, get outside, get your kids outside, and keep perspective of the small things, the important things, right? Communication, human-to-human interaction, getting out in the sunlight, getting some exercise. I've been posting pictures on my social media of the views of my morning runs while I'm out here. Because it's something that you should keep in context, right? Exercise is another one that truly leads your hormone regulation, your mental mood, and your body, right? We're in a very scary time, and I believe it's going to get much scarier for our republic, and that's all by design. There are people that are trying to make us scared and depressed and not talking to each other and at each other's throats. It's all done by design. And if you study a lot of the murderous Marxist dictators of the past, like Lenin and Stalin and Pol Pot and Mao and Castro and all these other ones, you see a repeating cycle. And that's one of them. They all have kind of a blueprint to tyranny that I wrote about a year or two ago. I don't know, everything's kind of compressed now. And I wrote about it for Uncover DC. It's called The Darkest Parts of History History doesn't always repeat itself, but the darkest parts always do. And I actually broke down all these different murderous Marxist dictators who have taken over their countries and brought massive amounts of famine and death and misery, because that's what Marxists always do. They have a very similar blueprint. They all had subversive groups. So here we could say Antifa and BLM would be Marxist subversive groups. They all have to have their populace terrified. They have to have, they have their subversive groups create so much violence that their populace is terrified to the point where the murderous Marxist dictator to be can go to them and say, hey, I know you're scared. I know how to fix this, but you have to give me 100% complete control, and then I'll fix it and you won't have to be scared anymore. And that's always the worst choice you could possibly make, because then your society starts to be completely pulled away because you just put a sociopath in charge of your nation and give them absolute control. But I got a little off topic. I believe that is entirely why people, even though we know the sunlight kills this virus, why people have been locked up inside, why they've been seeing fear-mongering over and over and over a virus with a 99% survival rate that doesn't affect any population except those who would be harmed already by the flu or any other number of things. It's all undesigned. You can't, this many things that are this terrible for a population do not get done on accident. Right? Gas shortages, completely terrified populace, and all these different things. One of the things that I see that's really worrying a lot of people right now is that we're finally starting to make progress in terms of finding out what happened in November. Some of us know exactly what happened in November. I basically lived in D.C. For that time frame from November to January, and I fortunately have gotten to see a lot of the evidence and talk to a lot of the people, and I know exactly what happened. But there's a lot of you who don't. And so the people who still think maybe it's true, maybe it's not true, I may have family that fights with you because they watch CNN and they believe absolutely what Anderson Cooper and Rachel Maddow and MSNBC tell them to believe. So a lot of these people that do have an idea of what actually happened, they're very scared because they saw after November how no court in the country would even examine or allow any of the evidence to be submitted. Supreme Court refused, said nobody in the nation has standing to challenge election fraud, which on its face is ridiculous, right? That means it's perfectly legal. So if it is perfectly legal, but they would be perfectly fine then with us sending millions upon millions of people to rig the election for the midterms next year, right? Totally fine. I mean, the courts said nobody can challenge it, and none of the law enforcement cares about it, so they wouldn't care if we did, right? We all know that is hooey, right? That they absolutely would. They would throw the book at us for trying the same thing that they did less than a year ago. And so a lot of people are really worried because they start to see progress being made in Windham, New Hampshire, in Maricopa, Arizona, in Antrim, Michigan. We helped Matt DePerno on some of that investigation, some of the stuff that he did. And that guy is a workhorse. He is knocking out of the park. I'm just going to take a quick break. I don't get any money or anything from this, but I know Matt. I've met him several times. If you have the money to donate to a cause, depernolaw.com. DEPERNOLAW.com. That's his website. You can go donate. His is the #1 case in the country for proving election fraud. He had hands down, and he's been working his fuzzy little butt off, and he is a fighter, and he just happens to have a real sweet spot where there's a judge that I guess has not been corrupted in a small town who really is concerned that the voting was rigged in their town, up ballot and down ballot, the whole thing. So he has a lot of opportunity. So if you really want to donate to and help promote this fight to prove what happened in November, that's the place to do it, depernolaw.com. Again, I keep digressing, I think because it's such a beautiful background here. But so a lot of people see that we're starting to make this progress. Maricopa is really in the headlines. A lot of people are starting to see undeniable proof that the election, the results, they keep deleting stuff and they were tampering and spoiling evidence, all kinds of crazy stuff. But people are very afraid that we're going to make some progress, that we're going to prove it, and then nothing's going to happen. Here's the thing. You can worry about what you can control, but there is no point worrying about something that you have zero control over. We can hope for the best. We have to stay positive, right? And there's a lot to be said about the power of positive intention, right? And that it's more important than most people understand. Human frequency and vibration, being happy and positive and moving forward and having good thoughts. matters more than most people have any understanding of. But we need to take this one step at a time. So don't let those things make you depressed. Don't make those things make you so depressed that you stay inside and you don't get out in the sun, right? Because again, that starts this downward spiral that none of us want to get wrapped up in. And I don't want to see any of you wrapped up in, because we need every American that we can have fighting for this republic right now. So if you're depressed and sitting on your couch and eating Cheetos, you're not doing us a damn bit of good. So we need every one of you that has the ability to get your mind, your body, and your spirit in shape, because we got a long fight. We got a lot of fighting to do, and it's going to take a long time. I say it took 3 or 4 decades to fully break our republic. It very well may take that long to get it back. But the most important thing, if you are a parent, we can kick this can further down the road. We can just not do anything right now and say, oh, well, we'll start in a couple of years. If we don't fight right now, it's going to be a very different fight. It's going to be much harder, and there's no guarantee that we'll actually do it. Now, there's no guarantee that we'll win now, but we are at the point where we still have some of the power, right? So the power in the United States of America is supposed to flow from the person, the individual person, right? Everything about our country was built around individual rights, and those individual rights and the power flow from the person to their local legislature, their local office, their local politics, and then it goes to state, and then it goes federal. And the federal government was only supposed to have a very small number of things that they had control over. Now, it's overreached over the years, and more money's gotten thrown into politics, and more corruption has come in, and we see what it's come to, right? DC is now the swamp. But we need to start getting back to the power to the people at the local level. And that's a lot of what we're focused on now, and what we're going to start focusing on in the very near future. Dan Schultz, if you don't watch Steve Bannon's War Room or heard of Dan Schultz's Precinct Project, he has a thing that he called the Precinct Project, where he figured out for the GOP specifically that their party was completely built around that model, that the power flows from the individual person up and up and up until you get to the federal government. And so the GOP model has all these positions that are called executive committeemen. I may have that wrong, ECs. And he found out that over half of the positions, of those positions in the GOP, have been completely unfilled. And the GOP didn't want anybody to know that, because they had the good old boy network, and a lot of these good old boys controlled these local networks. You're seeing this really big in South Carolina and Georgia right now, because Dan Schultz and his precinctproject.com convinced a lot of people to get out there and go run for these election positions at the very lowest local level of their party, of their local parties, because that is in effect where all the power comes from, because the GOP was built in the same model as the Constitution, which again, power flows from the individual up all the way until it gets to the federal government, which is not supposed to be very strong. But again, encroachment over the years, the swamp grew and grew and grew. So I need you to get out there. I need you to understand that you do have more power than you understand, but you got to stay outside. You got to get your mind, body, and spirit in check. You've got to have a reason to fight, right? What are you fighting for? If you're a parent like me, do you want to present the best possible world and society you can to your kids when they get older? Or do you want to leave them a smoking pile of rubble? I'm in the former, right? I was a Boy Scout when I was a kid, so I believe you always leave a place better than you found it. And that's why I'm so adamant that we fight now. That right now, we are at the precipice, and we need to do whatever we can do to ensure that we keep this republic and our kids don't have to shoot their way out of communism in the very near future when they get older and we hand over the reins to this country. So what are we doing to fight back? Well, so our group was started originally to have intelligence units and have boots on the ground security for these patriotic and religious events. Again, I've just believed for a very long time that the key to keeping this republic and now saving this republic is at the local level. So like I said earlier, they purposely tried to have people scared and locked inside and not in the sun and not out talking to each other and communicate with each other and having person-to-person interaction. There's a reason for that. And I believe that the most powerful way to contradict that, the most powerful way to fight back about that, is these patriotic and religious events that we've seen over the last year. We did 16 different events between October and January. October of last year and January. We were smoking. We were doing a lot of different things. We were traveling around every single weekend. We were very busy. Again, because this is what we believe in. We believe the most important thing we can do is get like-minded, patriotic Americans together in the same place so that they can, number one, have that human-to-human interaction. But number two, they can understand and see, because you lose sight of things. So they can begin to look around again and see that they're not alone, that they're not the only ones that feel this way. I live in one of the deep blue strongholds. Actually, it's started to go a lot more red in the last 2 years. But I don't typically have very many like-minded people that I can talk to. A military veteran, very personally, fiscally conservative / libertarian. There's just not a lot of people I can talk to. And so when we were going out to these events in DC and Phoenix and Denver and all over the country, that was actually where I felt the most alive, because I had a chance to sit down and talk and argue and figure things out with people that maybe saw things a little bit differently than me, but we were all basically of the same persuasion, and that was that we were patriotic Americans. And that's something that you got to understand also, is that there are a lot of people that don't see the nuances, and they're trying to divide everything right down the middle. You're either left or you're right. You're a Democrat or you're a Republican. You're liberal or you're conservative. And they're using these words and they're trying to put everybody in these little pigeonholes and say that that's what they are, and that we should divide against each other. That's not true, right? War makes very strange bedfellows. And right now, I would think if you're on the conservative side of the country, liberal, classic liberals should be one of our greatest allies, right? Classical liberals, the people that still believe in the what were the Democrat ideals 10 or 20 years ago, in individual freedoms and freedom of speech and my body, my choice and things like that. Now, the party itself, the Democrat Party, has lurched very far left to where they don't even uphold any of their true ideals. Of course, so is the Republican Party, right? The Republican Party is supposed to be small government, and yet a lot of the Republican elected officials have aided and abetted this gross overreach of the federal government over the years, right? They have put a lot of money into these different complexes, into the power of the state, which is supposed to, by definition, be the opposite of what conservatives, who are supposed to conserve, and Republicans, who say they're for small government, are supposed to want. So both of us, if you're on either side of this paradigm, both of us have been sold out by our elected officials. So we need to understand that this whole trying to put everybody in the, oh, you're a Democrat, so you're a progressive, so you're a liberal, so I can't talk to you, I don't like you. That's not the way to go forward. People who care about this country, people who care about individual rights, people who care about individual freedom, people who care about our government overreach and becoming the all-powerful state of Marxist regimes, we need to form alliances. And right now, if you're conservative, I think classical liberals, the people who believe in those personal freedoms truly, but they vote Democrat, I think they can be some of our greatest allies. And again, we need to get out of this paradigm of thinking that. But again, I'm digressing a lot today. I'm sorry. I think it's the sun is making my brain go, and being out in the beautiful natural splendor makes me happy. So I like to talk a lot. I talk a lot when I'm happy. But back to these events, right? So these events, again, wherever you are, right? So we did a lot of events. The very first event the First Amendment Praetorian did was for the Walkway Foundation. What's the Walkway Foundation? It was started by Brandon Strauch. It's a group of people who were Democrats and even progressives and decided to walk away because the Democrat Party lurched so far to the left and basically went insane. So those are our allies. Those are some of our strongest allies, and millions of them voted in an atypical way for the rest of their lives in 2016 and in 2020. So you need to understand that a lot of those people who believe in those individual freedoms and don't believe in the progressive, all-powerful Marxist state should be some of our allies. And so hopefully we see some of them at these events. But events are an opportunity for like-minded people to get together, to not only commune together and understand that they're not alone, because like when I'm in La La Land, occasionally you will feel very alone. And that's the whole point of what Marxist governments do, right? The reason that North Korea and communist China and Russia, Russia not so much, but North Korea and China, why they have to cry and wail in the streets when one of their great leaders dies or something bad happens or he gets sick, or pretend to absolutely love Kim Jong-un or Kim Jong-il or any of these communist leaders because they're forced to. And by forcing all their populace to do that and bringing terrible punishment on anybody who doesn't, that's what they create, is they create the society where people like us that are free thinking, that may not quite be down for the plan, look around and they see everybody pledging their allegiance and they see everybody else prostrating themselves on the ground for their dear leader. And it makes this little tiny voice inside of their body go, am I the only one that thinks this way? Am I crazy? Am I crazy for thinking that I want freedom? Am I crazy for thinking that I want enough food to feed my kids? Am I crazy for thinking that I work my butt off my entire life? I should have something to show for it. They're not crazy. But again, their entire society is built around alienating them and making them feel like they are crazy. And so getting to these events, it gives us all an opportunity to be around, some of those. There were 2 different events that we did in DC at the end of last year where I truly believe there were at least 1 million people. And we took over all the streets of DC. And it was gorgeous. It was a beautiful thing because there was no violence. They were the nicest people in the world you can imagine. And it was just a wonderful time where the only violence we were anticipating were outside groups who wanted to ran on everybody's parade and try to damage all this communing that was going on between patriotic Americans because they know the power of it. They want to stop it because they understand how powerful it is. When we realize just how many we are, right, how great our numbers truly are. If you look at the true numbers from the last election, it would blow you away. It's not a 50-50 split or a 51-49 split. There are a lot more of us, especially when you start looking at this little sliver that is the furthest left, violent, progressive part of the party that are creating all the violence and actually doing all the stuff that we try to protect Americans from right now. They're a tiny part of the population. So they don't want us to be able to get together in DC or in Texas or in any of or Florida or any of these other places and realize just how great a force we are if all of us were to band together. They just cannot let it happen. So it's very important that you get out to these different events, that you get with the rest of these groups and actually commune with each other and talk to other people and make new friends and work together, but also to get your marching orders. Right? That's another very important thing. A lot of these events that are being planned, and we have a bunch of events already on the slate that I'll go over in a little bit, they're by people who are activists at heart, activists by nature. Now, on the conservative side of the paradigm, that's a bad word. It's a naughty word, right? Because it harkens people like the people who trained Obama, right? The activist in Chicago or in New York or at Berkeley. I'm reading the book by Saul Alinsky, Rules for Radicals, right? Because you should know your enemy. I've been reading all of these books just to really understand. I read books on communist China. I've read a lot of these books on Marxists like I talked about. And I'm reading Saul Alinsky now just because you got to know what you're up against, right? It's the most important. Know thyself, but also know thy enemy. It's extremely important. But when we hear the word activist on the conservative side of the football, we automatically think of Saul Alinsky. But we need activists right now, right? Dan Schultz and his precinct strategy. He's an activist. He is giving people marching orders and telling them, you need to go do this if you want this to happen. Right? And so right now, this that we want to happen is to keep or save our republic, depending on if you think it's on the precipice or if you think it's already gone. We need activists. We need activists who can give people marching orders and have them do things like Dan Schultz has been doing and having them go and take back their party from the inside. And it is working. I don't know if you've been paying attention, but it is working. Linwood and Tracy Beans in South Carolina are giving a great play-by-play of the way it's going. Others up in Georgia and across the country. It's working, and the good old boy party that's been in charge, that is full of rhinos who really they're not truly Republicans and conservatives like we talked about. They're not small government. They're not trying to conserve anything. They're trying to line their pocketbooks. And that's why a lot of these things that we're seeing have been going on. And now that these people who have listened to the Precinct Strategy and Precinct Project are moving forward and actually taking back the party, this good old boys network is they're getting pissed. And they're starting to do very childish things to try to claw into their power as long as they can. But what they don't understand is that the conservative side of the house is starting to breed more activists. People are starting to realize that just saying how I feel or going to an event, it's no longer going to work, right? We need to up our game significantly. We need to start fighting back, not just professing what we believe in. And that's what these great events do, is you start to have our activists that can inform people, that can not only push back against the lies that we're hearing from the mainstream media, but can actively give people marching orders and say, hey, if you want this, then you need to do this. And we're trying to get people by the millions to go out and do these things that we need to do so we can take back our republic. The first event that we're going to be at coming up actually very soon, Memorial Day weekend, we're going to be in Dallas at the For God and Country Patriot Roundup. Now, I've had a chance to look over the slate of speakers for this. General Flynn, Lynn Wood, Sidney Powell, and a lot of other great, it's a very eclectic lineup. They've got food, music, speakers, events. It's got 2 different event spaces. It's going to be pretty awesome. If you have not heard of that, it's at thepatriotvoice.us, and you can register, and that's where we can sign up. So we will be there over Memorial Day weekend. I'm really looking forward to that one because it will be a lot more fun, right? I think that's the key thing that is very important about these events, is that we all have a good time together, right? Just being around each other, it's great, but we need to bring our energy level up. I think everybody should have a good time. So that's why I think that's going to be a really cool one to be in Dallas over Memorial Day weekend, because it'll have music as well. Now, a very important part of that I need to highlight to everybody. Dallas was where Brandon Straka was attacked by several hundred BLM last year before First Amendment Praetorian started going to and helping the Walkway events. I lived in Dallas for a few years. I grew up in Texas. I love Texas. But Dallas has made a couple of really ugly moves. They got a Soros-funded DA and chief of police that was in office. I believe they're gone. Well, the chief of police is gone now. But they had a lot of their own activists there in Dallas that got people very riled up, and there's a lot of little subversive groups. So it's very important that we keep our eye out for those people. We keep our eye out for anybody that would want to rain on this parade, that would try to harm this event. We're going to be there. First Amendment Praetorian will be there, which means we'll have our typical contingent of intelligence and security boots on the ground, and we'll have the low visibility people that blend into the crowd. So if we see any of these groups coming to harm anybody, we'll be there. We'll also have ISR, so we'll have eyes in the sky, just watching out, making sure everybody's okay. The thing about events that I want everybody to be aware of, if you haven't seen the videos of what happened on January 6th, please go watch them. I know a lot of stigma around it, it'll make you angry, but you need to go watch it. After you watch one of those videos, I want you to go watch an interview that Michael Yon, Y-O-N, Michael Yon, former Green Beret turned combat correspondent, he did with NTD, New Taiwan Daily News. He's been a war correspondent for a very long time. He actually did a great three-hour interview on one of our members' podcasts, Uncensored Abe, and there's another Brothers Uncensored that he does. Look up Michael Yon, Brothers Uncensored. But also this Michael Yon with NTD, where he spends a half hour, maybe an hour, showing how these activists, these actions, these things that they saw on January 6th exactly mirrored the things he's been watching Antifa do for the last couple of years. What does that tell you, right? If they're following the same exact tactics as Antifa, if there's video out there of them changing from black bloc Antifa gear into brand new MAGA gear, if there's all these video out there of them doing everything that we know Antifa does, why don't they want us to admit that they're Antifa? But anyway, the point of that whole thing is that on January 6th, they understood that agent provocateurs work. Agent provocateurs, and again, Michael Yon talks about this in his interview with NTD, agent provocateurs are people who have specifically been trained to rile up a crowd and to understand the delusion of crowds and mob mentality and how to insert, small little people or groups of people all around a large crowd and get them to do what they want them to do. Namely, agents provocateurs are meant to rile up a crowd and lead it to violence, right? You can see it in color revolutions all across the world over the last decade. Just look up agent provocateur and there's plenty of evidence. Now, we know that January 6th was caused, one, by Antifa and BLM radicals that were causing violence and damage, but a lot of the other people who were truly good patriotic people, they were getting riled up by these agents provocateurs who were there to try to influence the entire crowd to do things that they wouldn't have normally done. Now, since it worked on January 6th, this is the way the left, especially the subversive left, they're not very intelligent, right? So once something works, they're going to repeat it ad nauseum until it stops working. So January 6th, Agent Provocateurs worked. I am dead certain that we're going to start seeing leftist subversive, Antifa, BLM, or other groups, Agents Provocateurs, being inserted at these patriotic events. So what can you do? If you watch the videos of January 6th at the Capitol, there are a lot of different scenes where we saw patriotic Americans that saw and understood what was going on. Right? There's the one famous clip that really makes me upset, where there was somebody wearing a Make America Great Again hat that was going and telling the Capitol Police, do something, do something. These people are breaking windows and getting violent, do something. And the Capitol Police were just looked at him and laughed, right? There are other videos of people that were breaking windows, and there were, patriotic Americans trying to pull them down and pull away their hammer and stuff like that. We all need to work together. If you see something like that, if you go to one of these patriotic events, there is the Faith and Family Roundup in Dallas this weekend. And then there's our event in Dallas over Memorial Day weekend. If you see this, if you're at any of these patriotic events and you see people that you believe are agents provocateurs that are there specifically to rile up the crowd and try to spur people to violence or create any kind of havoc or something bad, I need you to call it out. Don't be shy. If our team is there, if it's the Memorial Day weekend event in Dallas, please find one of our team members and let them know. And don't be shy. If you're mistaken, no harm, no foul. But if you're right and you stop an agent provocateur in the process of trying to do something terrible and create another January 6th, and that's what I believe. I believe January 6th, they got the narrative, they got the mainstream media parroting the narrative, even though it's been crumbling all around them and all of their lies have been proven, they're still parroting that same narrative because it works for them. It's still useful. So I believe we're going to start seeing repeats of that all across the country. They're going to try to make a January 6th out of every one of these patriotic events that they can. So if you see that, please call out to security, call out to other patriotic Americans that you know and trust, and do not let them get away with it. Call them out. If you see people that are trying to encourage violence at one of these events, because if you've been to these patriotic events, you know they're not violent. It's people that are trying to go to these events because they don't want to see the country burn. So violence is the last thing on their mind. They're happy. They're finally around their people, right? So the patriotic events are the most peaceful places you'll ever be. So if you see other people, other agent provocateurs that are trying to rile the group up, call it out. Call it out to other groups of Americans, call it out to security or whoever you can find, or if you have the ability, stop them, right? And if you don't, and we're there, we'll stop them. I can guarantee you that. It would be our pleasure. But if we're not there, if it's one of these other events that we're not at, please do it for your country, literally, right? Because I believe that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to create more propaganda. This is a war. So it's a war of information. It's a war of propaganda. So do your part. And if you see this, please stop it. Again, it was a very long digression, but it's very important. So I talked about the Memorial Day event. So with Coalition to Defend America, we've got an event in Palm Beach, Florida, for July 4th weekend. That's going to be great. I am very close with that event organizer, and we're talking about some of the different speakers that they're lining up. It's going to be a good one. There's another event that we're doing for Walkway at the end of July that I'll let them announce where it's going to be and when it's going to be, because that's on them. We're doing another unnamed event in the beginning of August, and we're going to do Bard's Fest in the end of August, which is something I'm really looking forward to. I actually went out to St. Louis last week to go advon, to do an advanced recon of the facility. There's two different event facilities. There's one outdoor and one indoor arena, and they're amazing. And it's in a great place where he's got the local county politicians up to the governor are very, very supportive of what they're doing. They are beautiful locations. It's going to be a very family and religious-centered event. So very wholesome, family fun. And again, we'll be there so we can make sure that you guys stay protected and you don't have to worry about any of these outside groups coming to try and rain on the parade. We're going to roll heavy into that one because I want to make sure that nothing happens. They're expecting north of 500,000 people there. So just keep that on your radar. Bard's Fest at the end of August in St. Charles, Missouri, which is right outside of St. Louis. Now that is where we're going to be showcasing something called County by County. where we've teamed up with Bards, Scott Kesterson, aka Bards FM. We've teamed up for him on this county by county thing that I've mentioned a few times, where we're aligning with constitutional sheriffs around the country, and we're going to begin teaching these resilience training courses, right? So what does that really mean? Well, the people who founded this country were some of the most resilient and rebellious people that have ever lived, right? Resilient enough to sail across the ocean with only what you could carry and to completely start a new life for you and your family, whether it be going out and finding a plot of land and tilling it or whatever it be, and surviving polio and everything else. Our forefathers were extremely resilient. And we feel that we've lost a lot of that as Americans, right? We have smart devices that will give us any bit of information we need at the drop of a hat. We have services to deliver our food, services to deliver our groceries, services so I can just sit on the couch all day and watch movies on my phone if I feel like it, right? We've lost a lot of our resilience. We've become soft. There's no better way to say it. We've become very soft. So these resilience courses are going to be aligning with constitutional sheriffs around the country and training regular Americans to be resilient again. And there's a large host of different skill sets that we're going to be teaching. I'll be teaching a lot for mine, Special Forces medic specifically. So we'll have a lot of different types of training courses. And the first time that's going to be highlighted is going to be at Bards Fest. So we'll give a little demonstration. If you know anything about Special Forces, that's actually one of the things that Special Forces does often for command visits. Politicians come visit, generals come visit, things like that. You'll have an ODA actually showcase all their skills. So they can show, in one ODA, here's all the skill sets that we have. That's kind of what Bards Fest is going to include, where we're actually showing all these things that we'll be training regular, everyday Americans to be resilient again around the country. I also am going to be partnering with Bards on a new Intel-based show. Had a long talk with them a couple days ago. I've had a lot of people ask me to do podcasts. I've done a couple over the past however many years. It was the production part of it that always got me. You spend an hour recording and then 6 hours trying to edit it. He's got that part down. So Bards and I are actually going to be teaming up on an Intel-based kind of news program. So that's something to be looking out for. Just pay attention to the First Amendment Praetorian social media, and I'll keep you updated on that. I've got a note here about the mask mandates being dropped by the CDC. And again, it all kind of flows in with just being outside, right? The facade is starting to pull away. We're starting to see these things that a lot of us have known for well over a year are now starting to come out of the public. And so those of us who have been called crazy for saying things like just get out in the sun, now we're being proven right? So vindication is wonderful, but don't be a jerk about it, right? If you're one of these people that have just known from the beginning what was going on, if you're one of us, don't be a jerk about it. There's a lot of people that we're having people wake up by the day and start to realize what we're really up against, and that there truly are Marxists trying to take over our republic. As those people wake up, you don't shove it in their face, right? I mean, these are people, they're just opening their eyes to the world as it is, right? They're starting to understand, oh my God, the CDC has been lying to me for a year. This whole thing was just to scare people and keep them cowering in their homes. You need to be gentle, be nice. And again, be prepared to open their eyes to every other thing that there is, because they are opening up. In terms of that, right, one of the ways that I knew a lot of this was horse manure, about people being afraid of the virus. Like I said, we did 16 events between October and January of last year. I flew across the country for nearly every one of those. I think there was one or two where we had multiple events going on at the same time. But I flew across the country basically every week from October through January, actually through February. I only wear a mask when I am absolutely required to, and even then sometimes I don't, right? I try to push the limit because I know it's all BS, because I understand virus transmission and I understand I have a good, healthy body and immune system. And out of hundreds of our members, we had one get COVID, and it wasn't from one of these events. So we were at multiple events in DC that had 1 million plus people, a lot of other very, very large events where doing security, you're moving throughout the entire crowd. We're around people all the time. I was on airplanes going to and fro each time. We only had one member out of hundreds actually get COVID, and it wasn't from one of these events. So if we have hundreds of people flying around the country all over every weekend and nobody gets sick, what do you think? What does that tell you, right? This is supposed to be terrifying and the most death-defying, or the deadliest pandemic in human history. Yet we have our group. If you use our group as a control group, now we're all probably healthier than a lot of other groups of the population. But again, this thing didn't faze us, right? So we knew that we had no reason to really be that afraid of it. And again, that's the whole point, right? Marxists, they want you to be afraid. They want you to be locked up in your house. They don't want us talking to each other. They don't want us going to these events where we can actually get together and not only commune with each other, but also get marching orders where all of us can actually get together. The people that want to save this republic can actually get together and talk about what we need to do. That's why they closed down churches, right? A lot of the Revolutionary War planning was done in churches, right? And yet, California, you can have strip clubs open, you can have liquor stores open, but you can't have churches open. Can you give me any legitimate reason that would be? Show me the science that says that's the way it should be. There is no science. The whole point was to make you afraid and to keep us from talking to each other and to keep us from planning a way to keep this republic. But you know what? That's what we're doing. We're doing it anyway. And all these events are going to be a great place to do it, to get with the rest of us who have decided we are not letting this country go without a fight, and we are not leaving a pile of ashes and rubble to our kids. Marxism always brings death and famine and misery. And we're not gonna have that here. I want my kids to have a good life. And as long as there is breath in my body, I'm gonna do everything that I can to ensure that it happens. That means I'm not gonna let these socialists and then long list of expletives that go along with that word destroy our country before I hand it off to my kids. So I hope you're with me. And if you are with me on that and you want to go to these events and show your support, if you want to be a part of the solution and find out what action items you can do to help take this country back and make sure that it doesn't fall to these expletives, then join us. The first one you can join us at is the Forgotten Country Patriot Roundup, Memorial Day weekend in Dallas. And then there's a long list of events after that. We have a new website that is going up. We found a patriotic tech entrepreneur. Yes, they do exist, out of Denver. He was the one that got our crowdfunding back up, and he just moved our website over to his secure servers, or he's going to on Monday. That's something that even we didn't know, right? Parler got taken down because Amazon Web Services is doing everything they can to censor conservatives. If you don't know, Wix is hosted on Amazon Web servers. We actually had our website on Wix and did not know that it was AWS. So we're moving it over to secure servers just to be safe. If you are somebody that is worried about that, if you have a website that is on AWS or Wix or something else and you don't know where to go, reach out to me. You can do it via our website, 1apraetorian.com, and I can connect you with this tech entrepreneur. It's not like it's just me and him. He's got a huge business. He's the second largest data aggregator in the world behind Google. Right? The guy knows what he's doing. So if you're worried about your website, I can help you get him switched over there. He also does CRM. I have heard that Salesforce and MailChimp and all these other companies that do CRM, that do mass business mailings for you, they're starting to drop any of their clients who are conservative. This guy also does a CRM. So if you need a CRM system to mail your readers, your audience, your company, your customers, let me know. Also through our website, 1apraetorian.com, I can connect you. He's also the guy that got our crowdfunding back up. And that's one of the kind of most diabolical things that they've done. In that great social media purge, somehow all of our social media handles stayed up. I don't know how, but on any different platform you're on, you can find a 1A Praetorian social media presence. They stayed up, but they took down our crowdfunding. And that's something that they're doing across the board to a lot of different conservatives, is if they can't get rid of you, they're getting rid of your way to make money, right? So a lot of people are turning away from the mainstream media and they're turning into the alternative media, right? Uncover DC and Tracy Beans, Epic Times. There are a lot of great ones out there. Matt Couch. There are a lot of great ones out there. And so what they're doing is they're trying to take away their ability to make money. So if you can't make money from doing this, from doing your journalism, then you don't have time to do it. You have to do something to feed your family. And that's one of the great things about this new kind of part of society and crowdfunding, is that we were able to get a lot of these content producers who we really liked, who put out good product, and we were able to crowdfund them so that could essentially become their job, right? That could become the one thing that they did, so they could put all their focus, like Tracy Beans and Uncover DC and all these different outlets that we've seen pop up that were amazing. Well, so they started taking down a lot of crowdfunding. They took ours down, I think, from December until last month. But now this same patriotic tech entrepreneur has our crowdfunding back up. So if you go to the 1apraetorian.com website and you feel like you support what we're doing, or you could support what we're doing, or you like what you're doing and you could give something, please do. The great thing about this tech entrepreneur from Denver is that no part of your donation goes through Silicon Valley. So your name, your payment transaction, everything. If you decide to support our group, 1A First Amendment Praetorian, it's all completely secure and safe, and none of the Antifa radicals in Silicon Valley will know about it. It's great. It keeps it nice and safe and secure. And if you are somebody that uses crowdfunding to pay for your business, whether it be alternative media or podcasting or shows or whatever, if you have been demonetized or deplatformed, or you're worried about that happening, also reach out to me and I'll connect you with this guy. He's a patriot. He's doing a lot of good. And I think we need to get back to this place that we were in last October and November. We had a lot of movement going. We had a lot of people that were very involved and very energized, and that were very pushing forward very hard to save this republic. And then after November 3rd, and especially after January, a lot of people lost a lot of steam. But you've had the time to sit back and relax. You've had the time to lick your wounds. Now it's time to shake off the dust, get your butts back up, and let's get back at it, because we have a lot of work to do. So I want to say thank you very much to all of you for listening to me ramble, for looking at the beautiful scenery we have behind us. High points. Remember, get out in the sun. Come to these events so you can see each other and you can get your marching orders for what you can do to save our republic going forward. And if you have the wherewithal, please donate 1apraetorian.com. We'd really appreciate it. Also, I have a special deal that I'm going to put forward. We just got something back. I created these challenge coins. If you know anything about the military, you know what challenge coins are. So we have these challenge coins built for our group. Now, I just recently got them, so I haven't had time to give them out to our team yet, but I'm going to when we see each other at this event on Memorial Day weekend. But I'm going to make this offer today. The first 10 people who donate $100 or more to 1apraetorian.com, I will mail you one of our challenge coins, and you will be the only people outside of our team that get them. I did not print a lot of these, and I am not planning on selling these, but we have a lot of events coming up, and it costs a lot of money to get all of our people to these different events. So I'm going to take 10 of these, and the first 10 people that donate on 1apraetorian.com, $100 or more, I will send some of these out to you, and you will be the only people outside of our group that have them. So if that sounds like something you would like, please do so. Again, 1apraetorian.com. If you do not, or you don't have the ability or wherewithal to, that is fine. I would ask that you please share this video, share our links, 1apraetorian.com, or our social media handles, help get the word out. Not only donations, but we have a lot of work to do. So we're going to be doing another drive for members very soon. So if you fit the requirements, military, law enforcement, or intelligence community veteran, and you feel like you want to join us in standing on the front lines, protecting Americans and fighting to save the republic, again, you can go to 1apraetorian.com, begin our vetting process there. It's very thorough. I'm not going to lie, it's very thorough. We are very, we want to ensure that the people coming into our group are people that we can trust. It's just like being in the military or being on the front lines in law enforcement. We want to make sure the men and women to our left and right are people that we can trust, because we're expecting this year to get very ugly, to get a lot uglier than it did last year, because the beasts that have done all the evil things that they've done, all these narratives, all these false bills of goods that they've sold to the American public, it's all starting to crumble around them. And what does a cornered, wounded beast do? It tries to strike back. And I'm I'm anticipating seeing that very much. So if you feel that that's something you can stand up to, if you feel like that's something you want to do, you want to be with us on the front lines taking this republic back, again, 1apraetorian.com. I believe the link is J1, and you can put in your initial information there. Everything is fully secured and encrypted. All of your information I treat as the most highly classified information we have, and I had a TSSCI clearance in the Army, so I know what that means. We treat your information with the utmost level of security and secrecy. So again, if you want to become part of our team, 1apraetorian.com. Love to have you, but I will tell you one thing. It's going to be busy because we have a lot of work to do. So if you think you can keep up, we'd love to have you on the team. For the rest of you, thank you very much. Please support us if you can, 1apraetorian.com. If not, get out to these events. Get your marching orders. Take part in the battle to take back our republic. Thank you. I appreciate all of you. Deo et Patriae, for God and country.